What's going on, guys? Welcome to HITtalks, baseball's mental performance podcast. In this episode, we got the baseball doctor returning to the show. The baseball doctor is a 17-year hitting coach and instructor at Hardball Academy out of Pearland, Texas. This podcast episode is going to be broken into two parts. In this first segment, we talk about what do we want to get out of practice, both from a coaching perspective, but as an athlete as well. Be sure to follow the baseball doctor on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. The info is in the description below. So without further ado, here is part one of my conversation with Josh Cathcart, aka Baseball Doctor.
We're getting team stuff back. So
that's nice.
We have been in groups, having to split them up, keeping them, 4 to 6 kids out on the field for the past couple weeks. And now we can go with some team stuff this week. They're supposed to be holding our tournaments and everything for the 13 and 14s off till June 15th. My big boys, my 16 and 17U showcase high school guys, we're probably looking at a little bit later than that.
Gotcha.
For the big events, like the Perfect Game, WWBA Wood Bat events.
Gotcha.
Those type deals. 5-tool, looks like they're going to try to shoot for the 15th as well. And I've got some teams playing in those events. So it's getting back to normal, man. But it's we miss baseball. You don't realize, people are like, oh, I love baseball. Oh, I miss, this, that, and the other. It when you take it away like this from guys that are really that's their life and that's what they do, it's pretty brutal. So how about y'all? I know y'all are in a different situation than us.
Yeah, we're as of now, we're definitely still on shelter in place, and it's pretty tight still. I mean, they have an order. They extended the order actually till, what was it? What's today? The 19th. It was until May 17th. And they haven't, at least that I've seen, they haven't updated the shelter in place order yet, or to extend it out. So everybody's getting kind of pumped up, and they're thinking Memorial Day is going to be, it's like just have a green light to go crazy. And then they're thinking the men's league that I was going to play in this summer, they're all getting all hyped up and getting ready to go. And I hope it'll, that it'll open back up. But the thing is it really safe is the thing, especially having a family, having a young one at home. I don't know. It's tough because
there's tons of decisions to be made.
Yeah, because the viruses don't just, go on vacation. It's not just gonna, 1 minute it's gone type of thing. And so we've got some pretty high numbers in California still, and even in our surrounding areas of infected people. I'm not sure what the deaths are. Obviously,
Texas just had our highest day.
Really?
And they're opening everything back up. And the thing about it is, like you said, the virus isn't going anywhere. It's here.
Yeah.
So I'm so torn because I understand the safety part of it, but I'm it's not going anywhere. And if, they're opening things back up, people are trying to live, people are trying to make money, the stock market's trying to come back, people are getting stir crazy. You're getting all of this just stuff going on, and then you lose sight, kind of damn, there's something out here that can kill me.
So not just about you being, we having issues being at home. Okay, I get it. You're antsy, but the virus doesn't care if you're antsy. This is a real living thing that is trying to live itself, just like we are. There's kind of the irony is we kind of kill the earth, and we kill things too.
Yeah.
You could almost look at it like we're a virus, so it's all where you're standing.
It's been eye-opening. And, just like anything else, you see the various ways that people handle things when you have these big things, and just how different everybody is. Because, it'll run the gamut from the people who are like, oh, screw this thing, I'm going to go live my life and do what I want, to the people that are literally put themselves in a bubble, basically, and not doing anything, and being sensitive to all of that. Everybody's going to handle this different. So it's It's a crazy thing, and it's something that, I always, and it's not funny. I say it chuckling, but I'm not laughing,
Yeah.
obviously. Those, the class of 2020 high school kids, the ones that just, college too, but I just think of high school because I work with more high school, and I
Yeah.
really feel it, for them through their recruiting and everything else. And those kids are going to be able to say, I did something that probably I don't know of another year in my lifetime or in the last 40 years that didn't have a graduation and didn't have prom and didn't have any, and it's almost mind blowing. And out there in California, I'm sure that people are figuring out, but like here in Texas, since we've been able to get out, you're seeing like people, like I saw something the other day, this dad, I don't even think it was in Texas, I think it was like in Georgia or someplace, built his daughter a stage in their driveway so she could graduate, and so
Yeah.
people doing things just because it's a once in a lifetime event,
Yeah. Yeah.
and lifetime events have been taken away from some of those people. So
Yeah, absolutely. My nephew is a class of 2020. So
gotcha.
he lost his senior season, obviously, and was off to a pretty good start. And yeah, man, it's definitely tough. Not a fun situation, especially like you said, especially for the high school kids because they don't get that year back, or at least the
Right.
seniors. Obviously,
Yeah.
the younger classes, they still lose the year, but they didn't lose their senior
Yeah.
those events. So yeah, it's definitely tough for him. Um, and then of course, like the college, they get their year back.
Yeah.
So in college, this could almost be I mean, obviously, nothing's a blessing when people are passing away on the planet on this planet, but in terms of like a baseball career, the time off can be beneficial.
Yeah.
You gain an extra year, an extra free year to train. I mean, obviously, you're limited what you can do depending on where you are in the country, but I mean, definitely a year of an opportunity um, to get better. Because a lot of guys, especially like junior college, man, they need that extra time. They need that extra time to really fine tune to either get in shape or get stronger, faster, whatever it may be. So that's the kind of thing I stress to a lot of the guys I talk to, like local college that I coach at. Take advantage of the time.
Oh,
Take advantage of it.
absolutely.
So
Man, I see so many things out, memes and other people's write-ups and tweets and everything else. But one of the things that keeps circulating around is, coming out of this whole thing, you can be more out of shape, you can be more in shape, you can be, a better all-around person. Like you have to figure out a way to get positive out of this and improve. And I've told my young ones especially, my 12 and 13 year olds that are underdeveloped physically. I was like, guys, if you don't come out of this thing stronger, I don't know what you have been doing. Like there is absolutely no excuse. There's not an excuse for basically not getting your work in at all because you can be creative. But for not
yeah,
getting stronger during this time for a young kid, man, you've been wasting and wasting and wasting time. And that just goes, and this is a pretty good segue into what we're going to talk about today. And that just goes straight into, do you care enough?
mhm.
Like it's not about, oh, you can't get out to a field and you don't have a throwing partner or whatever excuses kids come up with these days, but to get stronger, got some push-ups, kid, got some sit-ups, got some pull-ups, got whatever it is.
You got the
and
floor.
and I'm going to be really interested to see when we do start playing again, the separation between the kids that worked and the kids that didn't. I think it is going to be, monumental difference because not everybody's been playing. When you're playing every weekend and practicing 2 or 3 days a week, if you're not doing your work at home and you're an okay athlete, you're going to be okay out in games with 13 and 14-year-olds.
Yeah.
But if you've been sitting at home doing nothing for 3 months, no games, no team practices, no anything, and then you're a kid that doesn't work on your own, you're going to stick out like a sore thumb. So I think it's going to be very telling about the kids that really want it, and the kids that want to get better when we get back on the field here in a couple of weeks. And oh, sat around and did nothing, went and got better.
Absolutely. I mean, I just remember just from taking a time off in pro ball. I mean, intentionally taking 2-3 months off, or maybe it was like more like 2. Where like I wouldn't throw a ball, wouldn't swing a bat. I would take time off from the gym, but then like maybe after a month, I'd like start hitting the gym again, and getting back to catching, just playing catch and throwing the ball. It felt so weird. Just the ball in my hand, like it felt so foreign. Like I literally didn't touch a ball for like 2 months, and then swinging a bat, it's like, what the heck am I doing? Like you totally lose that feel. But of course, there was no rush because we had months until the season.
Right.
You slowly get it back. But yeah, I mean, when you take off that time where it's nothing, you don't realize it, and then you come back and you're like, oh my goodness, like it's not that easy.
Well,
it was never that easy.
Yeah, I have a shortstop in our high school program that I absolutely adore. He's a fantastic ball player. But during this time, he just nothing negative about it. He decided to go get a job. Like he got an 8-to-5 job, right? And I called him the other day and I was like, hey man, it's like, I've been thinking about you. I was like, I know you've been working that construction job. I'm sure you're getting strong, but have you done anything to get in baseball shape for this showcase summer? And like, it took him a second to like process that. He's been hitting off a tee. He's been doing a little flip here and there, but this is a possible D1 caliber prospect shortstop that hasn't gone out and played in a game in, 3 months. And I was like, how are your legs going to feel after 4 games in a weekend and you're in the semifinal or championship and you're the leadoff guy and you need to steal bags and whatnot, and you can't even pick your feet up because you're not in baseball shape? And like I could feel through the phone, the processing, like, oh my God, I forgot to get in shape. Like I've been working on all my fundamental skills in the cage and everything else, but I forgot to get in shape. And, that's what I wanted when we talk about the topics for today. What are we trying to get out of practice? And that there needs to be a very clear focus. And it's determined by, for me, age, basically. You need to do a lot of different, or the way that your time is split with practice varies greatly for me with the age. And I just wanted, I don't know, from a pro perspective, from a minor league perspective, from a college perspective, I just don't know how it is done these days compared to what I'm doing with my high school kids and my, 12 and 13-year-old groups and all of that. And one thing that irks me to no end when I ask kids, what have they done at their team practice? They say, oh, we took batting practice. and yeah, and that's it. And I'm just kind of looking, and it pains me for them because that's so much time wasted. And
Absolutely.
batting practice is something you can do anywhere. You don't need a team setting for that. And that's where the questions for you come in. So what are your thoughts on, just practice in general, and, when you are out or when you were playing, like what you were trying to accomplish as an individual, and then how your coaches set it up for you? And then I'll talk about kind of what I do with mine and my thought process on it, because I deal with the young kids.
Yeah. Well, I would say that, obviously, so let's assume that like the time with your team is going to be is going to be team practice, right? You're not going to have a whole lot of individual. You may have infield, outfield. You may have some drills, some side drills, outfielders, infielders, catchers. But for the most part, it's a team setting. So like your reps are going to be on the lower side, right? You're not going to get a high volume. So if we just like assume that, we need to be, especially if obviously we're talking about kids that want to go on to the next level and want to continuously improve, they need to find time either before practice or after practice, right? So we got individual, whether you're by yourself or with a buddy or something, then you got your team, and then maybe you got some after practice. It takes some awareness to know, and some accountability and some maturity to say, what am I not good at? Or what do I need to improve? What, maybe if it's off of a previous game, where did I feel like I was kind of caught up in that last game? Like what kind of got me off the tracks a little bit, right? What derailed me that last game? As a hitter, was I, was I jumping out at pitches, right? Or was I late on pitches, or was I swinging at good pitches? So maybe it's an approach. Maybe you need to work on your approach. So you need to create some as realistic scenario as possible, like in practice. So if that's having your buddy throw to you from a, let's say maybe like 30 feet, like BP, but actually like give you some juice, put some juice on it to increase the degree of difficulty, right? If you do that, you can focus on your approach. So what happens is, and this is something that I've been wanting to talk about actually, so this worked out good, is having more failure in your practice, right? We have so much feel good practice, and there's a place for it. Like when you're working on some mechanics, or you're working on fundamentals, and footwork and stuff like that. It's great to do very controlled type drills. But in order for us to be able to compete come game time in a game of failure, we need to practice failing and coming back from that failure. And this is something I did not do. So I'm not speaking as if this is what I did. In fact, I wish I did these types of things. I did challenging drills and stuff like that, but like in terms of having a plan, right? So you have to have awareness, and you have to create your own plan to get your work in before and after. I think you got to create that high failure rate. I think teams and coaches need to do this much more often, because, for example, and I think about this, and this was me too, but every now and then in college ball, we'll set up the machine, right? And we'll either put it up to like 90 or 95.
So it's coming in there and going all over the place.
It's going all over the place. It's just pure absolute filth. Okay. I would not want to hit it.
Yeah.
And that's part of it. And you get guys in there, and maybe it's a bunting. It could even just be a bunting drill.
Oh, sure. Rev up the machine to 95 and let me try to bunt it, please.
Yeah. So just an absolute nightmare. But what you'll see is the frustration kick in. You'll see some kids are just like, bink, bink. Maybe they bink, no problem, right? And then there's probably 90% of the kids, the other 9 kids are basically melting down. They're getting so frustrated, so defeated. I used to do this too. This is why I know, and I know this
game.
I hate this. I hate the machine. I can't hit the machine. It's got, I like to see the arm. I like to see the arm, and they're just absolutely losing it. And then I started realizing, I'm like, oh my God, we have to do that. And then we have to teach them, how do you bounce back from that? Right. So like the number one thing that basically in the mental performance world is like breathing. Just being able to step back and take a deep breath when you are feeling like you're getting frustrated or out of control is absolutely huge, because it shows you have the awareness to recognize when the mind is kind of spiraling, right? You're starting to get emotional. You can recognize it, right? And then step back, call time or whatever, or if just in practice, step aside, take a fully in, fully out controlled breath, pick up a focal point, zero in on your approach and your goal, your mission in that moment, right? And we need to do that in practice. So I was thinking that could be something that you experiment with some of your players. Put them in a high failure rate. So if baseball is you're going to fail 6 or 7 out of 10 times, depending on the level. Let's just say 6 or 7 times. I want them to fail 8, maybe 9 times out of 10. Like something hard, whether it's you're throwing beans at them or something, with like a broomstick, something that is very, very difficult, and see how they respond to it. If they respond to it with like, yeah, this is a challenge, you're going to see some kids like that, and where they're going to miss and they're going to miss and they're going to miss, and they're just going to keep on trying and they're not going to give up. That's huge. Then you're going to have the kids that are just going to throwing the broomstick, throwing the bat, just absolute meltdowns. And that's a big, big sign, because that's what's going to happen in a game.
Absolutely. And for the younger ones, I don't give them a pass on it. Obviously it's talked about or whatnot, but some of, it's just young kids. I don't want to beat up too much in practice.
No. Yes.
And so that kind of goes, where I'm at with the different setups.
Age appropriate. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, age appropriate. And I also think that when you have a team that you are with more often, that you can do more of those high intensity, high failure type stuff. For me, I see my teams basically once a week for team practices. Right? I have them on Saturdays and Sundays that we don't play games. And so if I'm out there for a 2.5 hour practice and 2 hours of it is having kids fail 8 out of 10 times, I lose a bunch of 13-year-olds. They hate Coach Cathcart. They don't want to come do this. And so mine has to be,
That's the point. Yeah.
Yeah. Mine, there's a lot of up and down and give and take. And I probably shouldn't give away my trade secrets, right? But I think every coach does it. I literally game plan for happy days and hard days.
Yeah.
And so when I go out, I'm like, hey man, this is going to be Coach Cathcart loves you day, let's get through this. Everything's going to be fine. Even if you don't remember where you're supposed to be on a double cut, and even if you don't remember our pickoff signs and everything else, it's going to be okay today. And then there's days that it's all right. Now we're going to come out here and we're going to break people, and we're going to find out, who's in for the long haul and who can mentally get over a tired body after running the bases, running sprints, being put through a cutoff, circuit grind where you're running all over the place, having to figure out where the hell you're supposed to be. And so it is. And for kids, one of the biggest things that I look for in tryouts is, how the body language is and how does this kid look like he practices? Because watching a kid, and from, growing up, you look out on a field and you're looking across the diamond and you're watching that other team warm up. You're like, all right, number 8 should be a problem. Number 15 should be a problem. Number 20 should be a problem. We ain't got wherever number 11 is. Don't worry about him. Okay. And you can see that from how you warm up and how you practice. Mm-hmm. And kids need to understand that practice isn't just about throwing and catching. It's not just about hitting. It's about learning to deal when things go wrong. It's about becoming instinctual. Don't just run over there to that cutoff spot because your coach has yelled at you 5 times to do it because you've forgotten. You need to understand why. You need to get, into game speed, right? And I think kids get really confused at practices that are run by coaches that may not know what they're doing, or somebody that is trying to copy, somebody else that they saw, but they don't know the thought process behind it. They're like, oh, I just saw this, so I'm going to have my team do it.
Yeah, that's big. Yeah, you got to know the context of it.
Yeah, and I think and I think kids get really confused at practice. And so I kind of divide it up when I start talking about what are we trying to accomplish. I have our team skill days, right? And that's kind of told to the team, hey, today we're going to work on these team skills, whether with everybody involved, it's going to be cutoffs, it's going to be, pickoffs, rundowns, those type things.
Yep.
Then I'll have more of our game situation, like inter squad days, where we're trying to get into game speed. We're trying to get moving and doing all these things. We're not going to really stop and talk about the fundamentals. If you screw it up today, your team loses. And if you lose, you have X, Y, Z. This is the consequence or whatever it may be. And then I have individual, where we're going to come and we're going to work on the fundamentals today of catching a ground ball, of putting a bunt down, of, who has infield priority on pop-ups, communication between outfielders in the triangles and things like that. And, breaking practice into understandable, simple thoughts and goals where a kid's not just going, oh, what are we doing today? And when they have that kind of focus at the beginning, this is what we're doing today. Like, I don't have to worry about, oh, am I going to get to take 8 swings in batting practice at the end of the day? Oh, am I going to get to pitch to hitters today? All the fun stuff. They know what the plan is. And I don't know if that becomes more important or less important or equally important as you get older. I think as you get older, it's probably lined out better. I think a college locker room with a big board and the practice plan written out on it, and then the big league, whatever they do for the spring training guys, is much more organized. But that should show every day.
Sometimes. I mean, you'd be surprised, man. You'd be surprised. I don't think. I mean, that's what separates even at the big league level. I think it depends on the staff, the coaching, because you're gonna have some guys that are crazy like OCD about stuff. Then you're gonna have guys that are a little more, their style's a little more. You're just gonna kind of wing it, I mean, at the big league level, obviously they're pretty on top of their stuff. But I mean, like, you're still gonna have different styles in the types of the planning that goes into it. The college level, the coach that I played for and where I did some college coaching is definitely on top of his stuff, very, very organized. But then I've also heard just stories of other schools just kind of being just very sloppy. Right. And those are the teams it shows because they're like the worst teams in the league kind of thing, so it's pretty obvious. Yeah.
I definitely, I think that preparation, I mean, like you said, professional sports, I mean, preparation and organization and an expectation of not only behavior, but execution on the field, off the field. Those are the type things that separate, and it all boils down to, and this would be a whole topic for another 18 gazillion days. It all boils down to discipline. It's all discipline. It's all, like you said, really understanding what I need to do to get better, not just having I'm going to go hit today. Oh, I'm going to go field today. Oh, I'm going to go throw today, but really having, a much more detailed plan for that. Just for my interest, I'm just curious to know about different things. Like when you were, in the minors and after you got drafted and you went to rookie ball or spring training or whatever it is that, you guys do at the different levels, how is that broken down? Like in the morning you have your meetings, or in the mornings you have your individual work? Do they expect you to do that on your own? Is that planned for you? Like, is everybody set? Like, how's that work?
So spring training was definitely very well structured. They had every, hour or whatever the slots were planned out at the beginning of the day. We would show up at, I don't even know what time we'd show up, really early. A lot of kind of like
earlier than what we did.
Probably around 6, I think. Sometimes we would have like agilities at 6 o'clock in the morning. And that was just, this is, again, is one of those things. It's not so much physically hard, right? At that point, it's not physically hard. It's mentally hard to be able to push yourself to get up, get going. Obviously, you didn't really have a choice. If you wanted to make a team,
Yeah.
you got to get there. But then going through it and what you get out of it is kind of, that's the additional little mental component, is like, are you just going to get there and go through it? Or are you going to get there and actually get something from it? So that's another kind of thing, like a mindset for practice. But anyways, so as far as the structure, so I don't remember exactly, right? So we would show up, we'd probably have like some breakfast available. We'd get into like some agilities, or vice versa, breakfast after. Then we go in, we can shower if you want. You maybe have like 20 minutes, change, get out, go to the field. And we would have like all the minor league guys would be like on one field. They'd have like a little morning meeting. And then we'd break into our teams and we go into like individual work. So the outfielders, the infielders, the catchers and pitchers are off doing, who knows what the pitchers are doing, because I was an outfielder. So
those pitchers, man, they got their own world.
They do. They keep them in their own world. It's like, you don't see them, you don't talk to them, and then boom, they're in a game and they're throwing 97 at you. So it's, Jesus, that's what you were doing. But yeah, so it's definitely very well structured. So like with Colorado, that was the only organization that I got to be with, MLB organization that I got to play with. So in terms of, from that experience, it was very well structured. All right. We do our BP, or we do, like I said, our pre-game, like early individual stuff. Then we go into infield, outfield, probably break off and go into hitting the cages for a little bit, have lunch. And then it's game time. After you play your 9 innings, or maybe even sometimes 10, 11, 12 innings, spring training. Then you could either go and hit, and this would be like on your own. You might get called in by an instructor, say, hey, come get some extra swings. They want to work on stuff. Or you're just on your own. Some days it's conditioning even after that long day. So basically you're like 6 a.m. to like, I think games were at like 1 o'clock almost. Yeah, maybe 12, 1 o'clock. So maybe like 12 o'clock. And then you play like a 3-hour game. So you're from 6 to like 3. It's a long day. It's a long day.
And then go get your work in, or go, trainer or whatever. I mean, whatever else you got to do.
Yeah, exactly.
That's just the baseball side of it. That's not even the body side.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. So then you have obviously all access to that, get into the training room when you can. And here's one of the things that was, though it may be true, I didn't really, looking back on it, wasn't really helpful, but there was like the saying going around that if an instructor or coach sees you in the training room, that's not a good thing, right? That it means that they're going to see it as
I can see that. I mean, even at a high school level, I remember walking, into the training room, and you glance over and you see one of your players that you didn't know was going to be there. And you're like, is there something I need to know? Is there something I'm missing? And then they're like, oh, no, coach, I'm just, I'm here just getting treatment. There's nothing wrong. And then they're taking care of themselves. They're not hurt.
Yes.
But I can see how the initial, you're in the training room, I didn't know you were going to be here, means, hey, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, the initial concern, right?
Yeah.
But I think, some people take that so literally that they may need to go to the training room and they don't. It's like, if it's pretend that I'm not hurt when I'm actually hurt, there's kind of an issue there. You need to take care of yourself, because in the long term, or 2 days later, you're pushing a week later, something can give and now you're really hurt. Whereas if you maybe just went in and got some treatment, maybe they can advise you on how to take care of it yourself, that maybe you could have been minimized later on, but yeah, so anyways, it was very, very well structured. And I think, obviously, like you're saying, I think that's huge. Even just in anything, is being structured, even with our own day, right? Our own routine, which I haven't been very good at because my daughter doesn't want to sleep. And I've never experienced this type of, lifestyle where you have this little human being that is depending on you for survival. She he has to come first, and that's totally fine. But my health, or at least in terms of my, putting on a few pounds, has definitely set in during quarantine. But so it's important to have a structure. So like I told you, I've been wanting to get up earlier, force myself to get up
Yeah.
earlier, create the habit of getting up, getting moving, either going for a run, getting some kind of exercise in to get the day rolling, right? And then planning out the day gives you much more efficiency. You're more effective. You can get more done in less time if you plan it out. Same thing in practice. You can get more done.
Uh, I was about to say, throw that line back a couple more times. You will get more done if it is planned out.
Yes, absolutely. Because you already know what's coming. Boom, you make your transitions. That's, and especially a coach, if you're good at that, and you know how important that is. Sounds like you definitely do, which is why you're a good coach. Is that you plan your stuff out. There is a, like you said, there's a thought process to everything you do. Is there for a reason, and you got to keep the kids moving, especially the younger kids. From my experience, you have a lot more experience, but it's very clear to see that they can't keep their attention very long. I couldn't, their heads.
Yeah. Well, I will say that coming into this, before I came to hardball at the academy and did this style of baseball, I was at the high school. Well, during that time and my teaching job while I was coaching high school baseball was elementary PE. So you're talking kindergarten through fourth graders. And you're talking about 50 to 60 in a class. Now, you want to talk about keeping people busy and having proper plans. This is where I taught myself to plan things, is having to plan out 45-minute PE for 50 5-year-olds. That makes a baseball practice with 18, 13-year-olds relatively easy.
Yep.
But nonetheless, it is. And
Yeah.
I'm not a big writer for baseball. I will type out some notes, but even in my playing days, and I remember this from a really young age, and this kind of leads into our next topic. From a very young age, I always had a baseball plan. Now, I don't read. I'm not I read baseball stuff, but I'm not a scholarly type guy. Like I kind of fly by the seat of my pants. I'm real structured with baseball. I'm really detailed with baseball. But in my life, I'm pretty laid back, pretty easygoing. Don't really plan out my days. I know what I'm doing every day. It's been the same for 7 years.
Sure.
but for baseball, it was always right here. Like I could just, all right, I'm going to go out and I'm going to do this for 10 minutes. And I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And so I come out to the field and I'm like, I huddle guys up. I'm like, all right, today, we've got yada, 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 yada. And I remember the kids early on looking at me like, is he just making stuff up as he goes? Like, is he just saying stuff and doing it? And then after they had been with me for a little bit, they start to realize, okay, there's a plan to this. Like he's not just, flying by the seat of his pants and doing this. And after a while, they trust that you know what you're doing and that you're putting a practice plan together. Because the kids have to walk away from practice feeling like I got better. And even if they did, have those moments of failure and everything that you were talking about, you have to, at some way, walk away from practice, even if it was hard, even if coach was on you that whole day. You have to be able to walk away from practice thinking I was better. And I think with structure and a very clear, this is what we're working on today, you get more of that. Because when the instruction is unclear, when the expectations are unclear, everything else gets clouded anyway. And so, I always plan stuff out. It's just, it seems to be in my brain more so than anything else. And for my players, I think I have to do a lot of explaining back. There's always a plan. I'm not just throwing stuff up against the wall right now, seeing what's going to stick. You know,
Yep.
I don't have an office for you to come into. I don't have a big blackboard with, you know, practice points for every day. I'm literally seeing you once a week. And so having those plans and everything else is just, I can't stress it enough. And, you know, so we can get it onto this next topic a little bit. Make sure that when you practice, you understand what you're practicing. Don't go out and take those empty reps. Don't go out and, you know, swing the bat 100 times and call it batting practice when you're not thinking about anything, you know, those type things. So
yep. Absolutely.
just, you know, structure in a way that you understand what you're trying to do. Add the failure elements like you spoke on earlier.
Yep.
Challenge yourself mentally, which and then challenges yourself emotionally and physically, and understand what you're trying to accomplish each day. Don't go into it, you know, blind. I'm just here.
Yep. And to add on to that real quick, so like for the guys that are going to, you know, whether it's individual where they do something that's very challenging, it's a little more difficult when you're by yourself. But like if you're in a team or with a buddy and they create that high failure rate, it's important to not just start failing and get frustrated and just let the frustration feed into every rep. Right? We only want to do that if there's an actual like method to a strategy to employ when you become frustrated. So like I was saying about the breath, knowing,
breathing,
taking the deep breath. If you are feeling, and that's part of the drill, is that it's not just to get frustrated and see who gets frustrated. And then, you know, some go, okay, this guy does well under pressure. These guys don't. And then that's it, because that's just going to, it's just going to circulate that frustration back into the next at bat. And this is what we do in the games, right? We can have a bad at bat. If we focus on the bad at bat or the bad result, you know, over and over again, it's just going to feed into the next one, and then boom, we're in some huge slump, right? Because the slump is up here. A slump is it's not a real thing. It doesn't exist. The slump is up here. There's just natural waves of the game, and just accepting that that's what's going to happen, right? And so people turn those into like gigantic downward spirals.
Nose dives. Yeah.
Nose dives. Exactly. So it's important to, when you put yourself in these high failure rate situations, that you are purposely going to employ a strategy to combat that frustration. When you feel yourself getting a little out of control, then you need to step back, take the full deep breath, boom, and then refocus on the next pitch. And so the more you do that, the more you recognize yourself, like where you are at, the things that frustrate you, the less it will frustrate you in the long run, because you're building a mental muscle. You're building your mental strength, your mental awareness, and your ability to take back control of yourself, so that you can then.
That's so difficult. Yeah. And, you know, especially and I just kind of my niche where I'm at right now with the ages of kids. You have kids that are so immature. They're going through puberty. They're trying to figure out, you know, what they fit in life and everything else. And trying to control those emotions is just, I have a couple where I can feel their agony. Like when they start to get frustrated and whatnot, they have no idea how to control it. They have no clue. All they know is, I have this thing that's just right here and I don't know what to do with it. And I literally have to stop them sometimes and be like, look, man, take a second. You know, this is something that catch your breath. We're not trying to push limits here. We're trying to figure out some new stuff, you know, talk them through it. So I love listening to your stuff, man. The stuff that you've done with the mental side of it. You know, I've always known it's important. If you play this game, everybody's like, oh, mental toughness. But
how?
What does that really look like? How do we work on it? How do we improve it? How much of it is natural, how much of it is learned, how much of it is modeled. I think that some of it comes off of what you're around. And
absolutely.
And this is where the next thing, and man, we get talking, dude, and we just start flying.
Dude, where does time go?
I'm looking. Yeah. So this leads back in this killer instinct. You got, and I didn't even think about this when we started talking about it. Now we got the Michael Jordan Last Dance thing out. So the killer instinct, and obviously Michael Jordan is in a class all by himself. He's up there with the Kobe Bryants of the world, and those guys that are just those animals that you can't even comprehend how competitive they are. And I'm always interested when I get my younger, again, 12, 13, 14-year-old kids, and you see such a discrepancy in competitive nature. You see these kids that it's almost like if they hit the baseball too hard, they're hurting the baseball. Those really soft, fragile, like, I don't want to hurt anybody kids. And then you get those kids that it's like, I don't care who you are, I'm going to just annihilate you. And obviously they don't know how to control those emotions, right? They're hyper competitive. And I remember growing up feeling that way. Like, just, you're not going to beat me at anything. It doesn't matter what it is. You're not going to beat me. Now, I didn't have the physical ability to back that up. I got beat all the time at things, but that was my mentality.
Yeah.
But I didn't come from a dad or mom that was hyper competitive or, push me to be the best at everything. They wanted me to have fun. They wanted me to be good. They wanted me to, if I was going to do something, to work hard at it. But it wasn't, this hyper competitive environment that I was raised in. That was just something that I always remember having. And so I wonder when I look at these kids and they don't have it, and it's like, even when they get beat, it's like it doesn't make them mad or whatever the case is. Does that just mean that you're not ever going to be a really competitive person? Does that mean that you just don't show it on the outside? Like, I try to understand these kids and try to hit the right buttons to get that. It doesn't have to be outwardly aggressive, but just that inner fire to compete. And I wonder how much of that is you're born with it, how much of it is the environment, and then, how much is molded over time. Because anybody that plays for me, like, I feel like if it is molded by watching the people that are around you, like any kid that plays for me and ever steps on the diamond for me should feed off of that. And and they don't. Some of them are just still, hey, we're happy to be here, whatever. and so trying to mesh those personalities and everything is something that I don't struggle with. I'm very interested to learn how to do it better and what's going on with people from a competitive, thought process.